Question 1. To address the challenge of ensuring a fair and transparent admissions process at American University Costa Rica, an applicant is preparing their application materials. They have a period of employment that was shorter than ideal and a minor academic award that they feel does not significantly bolster their profile. The applicant is considering how to present these aspects of their background. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the ethical and regulatory expectations for university admissions? Option A. Hire a service to create a fabricated work experience letter and a more prestigious-sounding name for the academic award. Option B. Accurately and concisely describe the employment period and mention the academic award, providing context if necessary, while ensuring all other information is truthful and complete. Option C. Fabricate a longer duration for the employment period and inflate the significance of the academic award to present a more impressive profile. Option D. Omit any mention of the shorter employment period and the minor academic award to focus solely on more substantial achievements. Correct answer is B. Accurately and concisely describe the employment period and mention the academic award, providing context if necessary, while ensuring all other information is truthful and complete. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected by American University Costa Rica. The university, like any reputable academic institution, has a vested interest in upholding these standards to ensure the credibility of its degrees and the integrity of its admissions process. Applicants are expected to present their qualifications and experiences honestly and accurately. Misrepresenting information, even if seemingly minor, can undermine the trust placed in the applicant and the institution. Careful judgment is required to discern between genuine achievements and fabricated claims, and to understand the implications of dishonesty. The correct approach involves a commitment to honesty and transparency by accurately reflecting one's academic and professional background. This aligns with the core ethical principles of academic integrity, which are implicitly or explicitly part of the admissions guidelines for American University Costa Rica. By truthfully stating their qualifications, applicants demonstrate respect for the admissions process and the university's values. This approach is justified by the fundamental ethical obligation to be truthful in all dealings, especially when seeking admission to an educational institution. It fosters a foundation of trust between the applicant and the university, which is crucial for a successful academic journey. An incorrect approach that involves exaggerating or fabricating academic achievements fails to uphold the principle of academic honesty. This constitutes a misrepresentation of facts, which is a direct violation of ethical standards expected in academic settings. Such dishonesty can lead to the rejection of the application, and if discovered later, could result in the revocation of admission or degrees. Another incorrect approach that involves omitting significant academic or professional experiences that might be perceived as less impressive is also ethically problematic. While not an outright fabrication, this selective disclosure can create a misleading impression of the applicant's capabilities and background. It undermines the university's ability to make a fully informed decision about the applicant's suitability for their programs. This omission can be seen as a form of deception, as it prevents a complete and accurate assessment. A further incorrect approach that involves seeking assistance from third parties to create fabricated credentials or testimonials is a severe breach of academic and professional ethics. This not only involves dishonesty, but also potentially fraudulent activity, which carries significant consequences. It demonstrates a lack of personal integrity and a willingness to engage in unethical practices to gain an advantage. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to self-reflection and adherence to ethical principles. Applicants should ask themselves if their actions are truthful, transparent, and respectful of the institution's standards. When in doubt, it is always best to err on the side of caution and provide accurate and complete information. Understanding the university's mission and values, as outlined in their admissions materials, can also guide ethical decision-making. Question 2. The review process indicates that an applicant for the American University Costa Rica entrance exam is seeking the most effective and ethically sound method to prepare. Which of the following strategies best aligns with the university's expectations for academic integrity and genuine learning? Option A. Contacting current or former students to obtain copies of past exam papers or specific questions that may appear on the upcoming exam. Option B, focusing exclusively on memorizing a large volume of facts and figures from various online sources, without consulting the official study materials provided by the university. Option C, waiting until the day of the exam to review the material for the first time, hoping to rely on general knowledge and intuition. Option D, actively reviewing the provided syllabus and recommended readings, attending any introductory information sessions, and formulating questions for admission staff regarding the exam's general scope and format. The correct answer is D, actively reviewing the provided syllabus and recommended readings, attending any introductory information sessions, and formulating questions for admission staff regarding the exam's general scope and format. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected by an institution like American University Costa Rica. The challenge lies in identifying the approach that best reflects a commitment to honesty and a genuine desire to learn, rather than seeking an unfair advantage. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate preparation and academic misconduct. The correct approach involves actively engaging with the provided study materials and seeking clarification on areas of difficulty. This demonstrates a proactive and ethical commitment to learning. Specifically, reviewing the syllabus, attending introductory sessions, and consulting recommended readings are all standard and acceptable methods of preparation. Furthermore, seeking clarification from admission staff on the exam scope or format, without requesting specific questions or answers, aligns with ethical conduct and a desire for informed preparation. This approach is justified by the implicit ethical framework of any academic institution, which prioritizes honest effort and intellectual integrity. The American University Costa Rica, like any reputable university, expects applicants to demonstrate these qualities. An incorrect approach that involves attempting to obtain past exam papers or specific questions from current or former students is a direct violation of academic integrity. This constitutes academic dishonesty and would be grounds for immediate disqualification. It undermines the fairness of the admissions process and demonstrates a lack of respect for the institution's standards. Another incorrect approach, such as focusing solely on memorizing facts without understanding the underlying concepts, while not outright cheating, is a less effective and potentially misleading preparation strategy. It suggests a superficial engagement with the material and a misunderstanding of the goal of an entrance exam, which is to assess comprehension and critical thinking. Professionals should approach such situations by prioritizing honesty, transparency, and a genuine commitment to the learning process. This involves understanding and adhering to the stated guidelines of the institution, seeking clarification through appropriate channels, and preparing diligently and ethically. When in doubt, it is always best to err on the side of caution and consult the official admissions or examination policies. Question 3. What factors determine an applicant's suitability for admission to the American University Costa Rica, considering its commitment to a holistic evaluation process? Option A, the applicant's participation in a minimum number of community service hours, regardless of academic standing or other application components. Option B, the applicant's performance on a single, high-stakes entrance examination designed to measure raw intellectual capacity. Option C, the applicant's ability to secure a significant financial sponsorship from a recognized institution. Option D, a comprehensive assessment of academic transcripts, standardized test scores, if applicable, extracurricular achievements, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, as outlined in the university's official admissions policy. Correct answer is D, a comprehensive assessment of academic transcripts, standardized test scores, if applicable, extracurricular achievements, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, as outlined in the university's official admissions policy. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate a nuanced understanding of the American University Costa Rica's admission criteria, which are not solely based on academic scores, but also encompass a holistic review. The university's commitment to admitting well-rounded individuals necessitates a careful evaluation of various qualitative and quantitative elements. Misinterpreting these criteria can lead to an applicant being unfairly disadvantaged, or the university admitting candidates who may not be the best fit for its academic and community environment. The correct approach involves a comprehensive understanding of the American University Costa Rica's stated admission policies, which typically include academic performance, GPA, standardized test scores if applicable, extracurricular involvement, personal essays or statements, letters of recommendation, and potentially interviews. This approach is right because it aligns with the university's stated goal of holistic admissions, ensuring that all relevant aspects of an applicant's profile are considered. Adhering to these established criteria is ethically sound and professionally responsible, as it ensures fairness and transparency in the admissions process and respects the university's autonomy in defining its ideal candidate profile. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on academic scores, neglecting other crucial components like essays or recommendations. This fails to acknowledge the university's stated commitment to holistic review and could lead to overlooking strong candidates who excel in non-academic areas. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize extracurricular activities over academic performance without understanding the specific weighting the university assigns to each. This could result in an unbalanced assessment. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or rumors about admission preferences, rather than the official published guidelines, is professionally unsound and ethically questionable, as it introduces bias and misinformation into the evaluation process. Professionals involved in admission should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough review of the official admission guidelines and policies. This should be followed by a systematic evaluation of each applicant against these criteria, ensuring consistency and fairness. When faced with ambiguity, seeking clarification from the admissions committee or relevant university officials is paramount. The process should always prioritize objective assessment based on established standards, while also recognizing the qualitative aspects that contribute to a successful student profile. Question 4. The control framework reveals that the American University Costa Rica Entrance Exam Admissions Committee is reviewing applications. A committee member's close personal friend has submitted an application for a candidate who appears to be borderline in meeting the academic prerequisites and has not achieved the minimum score on the standardized entrance exam. The committee member is advocating strongly for the candidate's admission, citing their potential and the friendship. Which of the following represents the most professionally sound approach to managing this situation? Option A. The committee member should recuse themselves from the discussion and vote regarding this specific application to avoid any perception of bias and allow for an objective evaluation by the remaining committee members. Option B. The committee member should proceed with the evaluation as usual but mentally discount any personal feelings and focus solely on the objective criteria, believing their objectivity is sufficient. Option C. The committee member should leverage their personal relationship to advocate for the candidate, emphasizing their belief in the candidate's potential and the importance of supporting friends. Option D. The committee member should suggest that the candidate be given a special interview or a supplementary assessment that is not part of the standard admissions process to gauge their true capabilities. Correct answer is A. The committee member should recuse themselves from the discussion and vote regarding this specific application to avoid any perception of bias and allow for an objective evaluation by the remaining committee members. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts of interest and uphold ethical standards within the context of academic admissions, specifically for the American University Costa Rica entrance exam. The pressure to admit a candidate who may not fully meet the established criteria, especially when influenced by personal connections, necessitates a rigorous adherence to established protocols and a clear understanding of the university's commitment to meritocracy and fairness. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of the candidate's application against the defined admission standards, without allowing personal relationships or external pressures to influence the decision. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, integrity, and transparency expected in academic institutions. Specifically, for the American University Costa Rica entrance exam, this would mean strictly adhering to the published admission criteria, ensuring all applicants are assessed on the same objective measures, and documenting the decision-making process transparently. This upholds the integrity of the examination and the university's reputation. An incorrect approach that prioritizes the personal connection over objective merit would represent a significant ethical failure. This could involve overlooking deficiencies in the candidate's academic record or exam performance, thereby compromising the fairness of the admissions process. Such an action undermines the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and could lead to the admission of underqualified students, potentially impacting the academic standards of the university. Furthermore, it violates the implicit trust placed in admissions officers to act impartially. Another incorrect approach might involve attempting to subtly manipulate the evaluation process to favor the candidate without overtly breaking rules, such as assigning subjective points or downplaying negative aspects of the application. This is ethically problematic as it still constitutes a deviation from objective assessment and introduces bias, even if not overtly discriminatory. It erodes the credibility of the admissions process and can lead to a perception of favoritism. The professional decision-making process in such situation should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. Professionals must prioritize objective assessment, document all evaluations meticulously, and be prepared to justify their decisions based solely on the established criteria. If faced with pressure or a conflict of interest, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the relevant ethics committee is crucial to ensure adherence to professional standards and institutional policies. Question 5. Strategic planning requires the American University of Costa Rica to establish robust admissions policies. Considering the potential for personal relationships among faculty and staff, what is the most appropriate method for the admissions committee to manage potential conflicts of interest when reviewing applicant files? Option A. Rely on informal conversations among committee members to identify and address any perceived conflicts of interest on a case-by-case basis. Option B. Prohibit committee members from discussing any applicants they might know personally, even if no formal conflict of interest exists, to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Option C. Implement a formal, written policy requiring committee members to disclose any personal or professional relationships with applicants and to recuse themselves from voting on those specific applications, with a mechanism for independent review of such cases. Option D. Allow committee members to vote on all applications, trusting their professional judgment to remain impartial even when they know an applicant personally. The correct answer is C. Implement a formal written policy requiring committee members to disclose any personal or professional relationships with applicants and to recuse themselves from voting on those specific applications, with a mechanism for independent review of such cases. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admissions processes, all within the specific regulatory framework governing higher education in Costa Rica. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential conflicts of interest that could compromise the integrity of the admissions committee's decisions. Careful judgment is required to uphold both academic standards and legal compliance. The correct approach involves establishing a clear, documented policy for managing conflicts of interest within the admissions committee. This policy should outline procedures for disclosure, recusal, and independent review when a potential conflict arises. This aligns with the principles of good governance and ethical conduct expected of educational institutions under Costa Rican law, which emphasizes transparency and impartiality in decision-making processes, particularly in areas affecting individuals' educational opportunities. Adhering to such a policy ensures that admissions decisions are based solely on merit and suitability for the program, free from undue influence. An incorrect approach that involves allowing committee members to vote on applications where they have a personal connection, without any disclosure or recusal mechanism, directly violates ethical principles of fairness and impartiality. This could also contravene Costa Rican regulations that mandate unbiased decision-making in administrative processes. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore potential conflicts of interest altogether, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for established ethical standards and regulatory expectations for institutional integrity. Finally, an approach that relies solely on informal discussions to address conflicts, without formal documentation or clear procedures, is insufficient to guarantee compliance and can lead to inconsistent or biased outcomes, undermining the credibility of the admissions process and potentially exposing the university to legal challenges. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. This involves proactively identifying potential conflicts of interest, establishing clear disclosure and recusal protocols, ensuring that decisions are made by an impartial body, and maintaining thorough documentation of the entire process. When faced with uncertainty, seeking guidance from legal counsel or relevant regulatory bodies within Costa Rica is a prudent step to ensure adherence to all applicable laws and guidelines. Question 6. The performance metrics show a slight decline in the average GPA of admitted students over the last 2 admission cycles, potentially impacting the university's ranking. The admissions committee is reviewing applications for the upcoming cycle, and one applicant has a strong extracurricular profile and compelling personal statement, but a GPA that falls just below the stated minimum threshold for their intended program. How should the committee proceed to uphold both academic standards and the university's commitment to a diverse and capable student body? Option A. Recommend the applicant for a probationary admission status without a thorough review of their extenuating circumstances, focusing on the need to increase the average GPA of admitted students. Option B. Reject the applicant outright due to their GPA not meeting the minimum threshold, prioritizing strict adherence to numerical cutoffs to maintain the university's reputation for academic rigor. Option C. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's file, considering their extracurricular achievements, personal statement, and any documented extenuating circumstances, to determine if they demonstrate the potential to succeed in the program despite the GPA falling slightly below the threshold, while ensuring this decision is well documented and aligns with institutional policy on borderline cases. Option D. Admit the applicant to improve the overall GPA metrics and bolster the university's perceived academic standing in the short term, assuming their other strengths will compensate for the lower GPA. Correct answer is C. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's file, considering their extracurricular achievements, personal statement, and any documented extenuating circumstances, to determine if they demonstrate the potential to succeed in the program despite the GPA falling slightly below the threshold, while ensuring this decision is well documented and aligns with institutional policy on borderline cases. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of student retention and institutional reputation. The admissions committee must make a judgment call that upholds the rigorous standards expected of a reputable institution, while also considering the individual circumstances of applicants. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting the performance metrics, not just as raw data, but as indicators that require nuanced understanding within the context of the American University Costa Rica's specific admissions framework. The correct approach involves a holistic review that prioritizes adherence to the university's stated admissions criteria and ethical guidelines for evaluating academic potential. This approach correctly recognizes that, while performance metrics are important, they are not the sole determinant of an applicant's suitability. It involves a thorough examination of the applicant's entire academic record, extracurricular activities, personal essays, and any mitigating circumstances, all viewed through the lens of the university's commitment to admitting students who can succeed academically and contribute positively to the university community. This aligns with the ethical imperative to be fair and transparent in admissions decisions, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated against consistent, predefined standards that reflect the university's academic mission. The regulatory framework for university admissions, while not explicitly detailed here, generally emphasizes fairness, non-discrimination, and adherence to institutional policies. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on improving the university's overall performance metrics by admitting borderline candidates, even if they do not fully meet the established academic thresholds, represents a significant ethical failure. This prioritizes institutional image over academic rigor and potentially compromises the quality of education and the value of the degree. It violates the principle of admitting students who are demonstrably prepared for the academic challenges ahead, leading to potential issues with student success and retention rates, which in turn can negatively impact the university's long-term reputation. Another incorrect approach that involves overlooking significant discrepancies in performance metrics without proper justification or a clear, documented rationale also constitutes an ethical lapse. This can be perceived as favoritism or a lack of due diligence, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. It fails to uphold the principle of equal opportunity and can lead to perceptions of unfairness among applicants. A third incorrect approach that involves applying different standards to different applicants based on factors not related to their academic merit or potential for success, such as personal connections or perceived future influence, is a clear violation of ethical admissions practices and potentially regulatory guidelines concerning fairness and transparency. This undermines the integrity of the admissions process and can lead to legal challenges and reputational damage. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured review process that emphasizes adherence to established admissions policies and ethical principles. This includes clearly defining the criteria for evaluation, ensuring that all reviewers are trained on these criteria and ethical considerations, documenting the rationale for all admissions decisions, and having a mechanism for oversight and review to ensure consistency and fairness. Professionals should always prioritize the long-term academic health and ethical standing of the institution over short-term gains or pressures. Question 7. The performance metrics show a significant increase in applications from students with strong academic backgrounds, but also a notable rise in applications from individuals with extensive family connections to the university and substantial philanthropic potential. The admissions committee is tasked with selecting the incoming class, which approach best aligns with the principles of fair and effective university admissions. Option A. Select the incoming class based solely on the highest standardized test scores, as this is the most objective measure of academic readiness. Option B. Prioritize candidates based on a comprehensive evaluation of academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, ensuring all applicants are assessed against the same established criteria. Option C. Adjust admission criteria dynamically during the application review period to accommodate a higher number of applicants from well-connected families. Option D. Focus primarily on candidates whose families have a history of significant financial contributions to the university or who demonstrate strong potential for future donations. The correct answer is B. Prioritize candidates based on a comprehensive evaluation of academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, ensuring all applicants are assessed against the same established criteria. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admissions processes. The admissions committee must make decisions based on objective criteria and established guidelines, avoiding any undue influence or bias. The deep analysis focuses on how different approaches align with or deviate from the principles of academic integrity and regulatory compliance within the context of university admissions. The correct approach involves a thorough review of all application components, including academic records, extracurricular achievements, and personal statements, against the established admissions criteria. This method upholds the principle of meritocracy and ensures that decisions are based on a holistic evaluation of each candidate's potential to succeed at the university. It aligns with the implicit regulatory framework governing university admissions, which emphasizes fairness, objectivity, and adherence to stated policies. The ethical imperative is to treat all applicants equitably and to maintain the credibility of the admissions process. An approach that prioritizes candidates based on their family's financial contributions or potential for future donations is ethically unsound and potentially violates principles of equal opportunity. This deviates from the core mission of an academic institution, which is to select students based on their academic merit and potential, not their financial capacity or connections. Such a practice could lead to accusations of favoritism and undermine the integrity of the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to solely focus on standardized test scores, disregarding other crucial aspects of an applicant's profile such as essays, recommendations, and extracurricular activities. While test scores are a component, an over-reliance on them can lead to overlooking promising candidates who may excel in other areas or have unique experiences that contribute to a diverse student body. This narrow focus fails to provide a holistic assessment, which is a recognized best practice in admissions. Finally, an approach that allows for arbitrary changes to admission criteria mid-application cycle, without clear justification or communication to applicants is procedurally unfair. This lack of transparency and consistency can disadvantage applicants who have prepared their applications based on the initial criteria, creating an inequitable playing field. It erodes trust in the admissions process and can lead to legal or reputational challenges. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a commitment to established policies, a thorough understanding of ethical principles in admissions, and a dedication to fairness and transparency. Professionals should always refer to the university's official admissions guidelines and seek clarification from relevant authorities if any ambiguity arises. Question 8. The performance metrics show a significant improvement in graduate employment rates for the past academic year, but also a concerning decline in student satisfaction scores for a particular program. Which approach best upholds the American University Costa Rica's commitment to transparency and academic integrity? Option A. Emphasize the positive trend in graduate employment rates in all official reports and communications, while deferring detailed discussion of student satisfaction scores to internal departmental reviews. Option B. Present a balanced report that includes both the improved graduate employment rates and the declining student satisfaction scores, providing context and outlining planned actions to address the satisfaction issues. Option C. Highlight the graduate employment rates and suggest that the decline in student satisfaction may be due to external factors unrelated to the program's quality or the university's performance. Option D. Focus exclusively on the graduate employment rates, as this is a key indicator of program success that directly impacts the university's reputation and future enrollment. Correct answer is A. Emphasize the positive trend in graduate employment rates in all official reports and communications, while deferring detailed discussion of student satisfaction scores to internal departmental reviews. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for accurate performance data with the ethical obligation to present that data transparently and without manipulation. The pressure to demonstrate positive results can lead to a temptation to selectively report or frame data in a misleading way. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the performance metrics accurately reflect the reality of student outcomes and program effectiveness, adhering to principles of academic integrity and responsible reporting. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and unbiased review of all relevant performance metrics, including both successes and areas for improvement. This approach upholds the university's commitment to transparency and accountability. Ethically, it aligns with the principles of honesty and integrity in reporting, ensuring that stakeholders, students, faculty, prospective applicants, and governing bodies receive a true picture of the university's performance. Regulatory frameworks governing educational institutions often emphasize accurate data reporting and prohibit deceptive practices. Presenting a balanced view, even if it includes less favorable data, is crucial for maintaining credibility and fostering continuous improvement. An approach that focuses solely on highlighting positive metrics while omitting or downplaying negative ones is ethically flawed. This constitutes a misrepresentation of performance and can mislead stakeholders about the true state of the university. Such selective reporting violates the principle of transparency and can lead to poor decision-making by those relying on the information. It also risks violating any specific regulations that mandate comprehensive and truthful reporting of institutional data. An approach that involves altering or fabricating data to present a more favorable picture is a severe ethical and potentially legal violation. This is not only dishonest, but also undermines the entire purpose of performance metrics, which is to provide a basis for evaluation and improvement. It erodes trust and can have serious consequences for the university's reputation and accreditation. The professional reasoning process in such situations should involve a commitment to data integrity and ethical reporting. Professionals should first understand the purpose of the metrics and the intended audience. They should then gather all relevant data, ensuring its accuracy and completeness. The next step is to analyze the data objectively, identifying both strengths and weaknesses. Finally, the information should be presented in a clear, honest, and balanced manner, providing context and explanations where necessary, even if the full picture is not entirely positive. This process prioritizes truthfulness and responsible stewardship of information. Question 9. The performance metrics show a statistically significant cluster of exceptionally high scores on a specific section of the American University Costa Rica entrance exam, raising concerns about potential irregularities in the administration or candidate conduct. What is the most appropriate initial course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Dismiss the performance metrics as random variations and proceed with admissions based on the raw scores without further inquiry. Option B. Publicly announce that an investigation into exam irregularities is underway without specifying details or candidates involved to deter future misconduct. Option C. Initiate a formal investigation into the exam administration and candidate performance, strictly following the American University Costa Rica's established academic integrity policies and procedures for addressing potential irregularities. Option D. Immediately disqualify all candidates who achieved scores within the identified cluster, citing statistical anomalies as definitive proof of misconduct. The correct answer is C. Initiate a formal investigation into the exam administration and candidate performance, strictly following the American University Costa Rica's established academic integrity policies and procedures for addressing potential irregularities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance institutional goals with ethical considerations and adherence to the American University Costa Rica's established academic integrity policies. The university's entrance exam is designed to assess a candidate's aptitude and preparedness, and any deviation from fair and transparent assessment practices undermines the validity of the admissions process and the reputation of the institution. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the integrity of the exam is maintained, while also considering the university's commitment to admitting qualified students. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation into the observed performance anomalies, strictly adhering to the American University Costa Rica's established procedures for academic misconduct. This approach prioritizes fairness to all candidates and upholds the principles of academic integrity. Specifically, it requires gathering objective evidence, reviewing the exam administration protocols, and consulting the university's official policy on academic dishonesty. This aligns with the ethical obligation to ensure a level playing field for all applicants and to maintain the credibility of the admissions process. The university's internal regulations and guidelines on academic integrity are the sole governing framework here, and any action taken must be in strict accordance with these. An approach that involves immediately disqualifying candidates based on statistical anomalies without a proper investigation fails to uphold due process and could lead to unfair outcomes. This bypasses the university's established procedures for addressing potential misconduct, which typically involve providing the accused with an opportunity to respond to allegations. Such an action would be a direct violation of the principles of fairness and natural justice, which are implicitly part of any reputable academic institution's operational framework, even if not explicitly detailed in every policy document. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the performance metrics altogether, assuming they are simply outliers. This neglects the university's responsibility to ensure the integrity of its admissions process. Failing to investigate potential irregularities could allow for unfair advantages to be gained, thereby disadvantaging honest applicants and compromising the quality of the incoming student body. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the established standards of academic assessment. A further inappropriate response would be to publicly speculate about the cause of the performance metrics without concrete evidence or adherence to university communication protocols. This could lead to reputational damage for the university and unfair judgment of candidates before any formal process has been completed. It violates principles of confidentiality and due process. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a systematic approach. First, recognize and document the anomaly. Second, consult the relevant university policies and procedures regarding academic integrity and admissions. Third, initiate a formal, impartial investigation based on objective evidence. Fourth, follow the prescribed steps for addressing potential misconduct, including notification and opportunity for response. And finally, make a decision based on the findings and in strict accordance with university regulations. Question 10. The risk matrix shows a potential high risk associated with an applicant's academic record, flagged for inconsistencies that could indicate academic misconduct or significant academic challenges. The admissions committee is under pressure to meet enrollment targets for the upcoming semester. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Admit the applicant without further investigation, prioritizing meeting enrollment targets over the potential risks identified by the matrix. Option B. Conduct a detailed review of the applicant's academic history, request a written explanation for the flagged inconsistencies, and consider this information alongside other application components before making a decision. Option C. Immediately reject the applicant based on the high-risk indicator in the matrix to avoid potential future academic issues and protect the university's reputation. Option D. Admit the applicant but place them on a strict academic probation, without understanding the specific reasons for the flagged inconsistencies. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed review of the applicant's academic history, request a written explanation for the flagged inconsistencies, and consider this information alongside other application components before making a decision. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student admissions under pressure. The admissions committee must make a judgment call that upholds the university's standards while also being fair to applicants. The risk matrix, in this context, serves as a tool to visualize potential outcomes and their likelihood, guiding a more informed decision-making process rather than relying solely on intuition. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the applicant's profile, considering all available information, including the flagged academic record, and seeking clarification from the applicant where necessary. This aligns with principles of fairness, due diligence, and transparency, which are fundamental to ethical admissions processes. Specifically, Costa Rican educational regulations and the American University Costa Rica's own admissions policies would mandate a process that is both rigorous and equitable, ensuring that decisions are based on objective criteria and that applicants are given a fair opportunity to present their case. This approach minimizes the risk of arbitrary decisions and potential appeals. An incorrect approach that involves immediate rejection based solely on the risk matrix's red flag, without further investigation or opportunity for the applicant to explain, fails to meet the standards of due diligence. This could be seen as a breach of fairness and potentially violates university policies that require a comprehensive evaluation of all applicants. Another incorrect approach, which is to admit the student without any further scrutiny, ignores the warning signs presented by the risk matrix and the potential implications for academic standards and the university's reputation. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and a failure to adhere to the university's commitment to admitting qualified students. A third incorrect approach, which is to admit the student but place them on a probationary status without a clear understanding of the underlying issues, is also problematic. While it attempts to mitigate risk, it does so without a proper assessment of the student's actual academic preparedness or the root cause of the flagged record, potentially leading to future academic difficulties for the student and continued risk for the university. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the purpose and limitations of tools like the risk matrix. They should then consult relevant university policies and any applicable Costa Rican educational guidelines. The decision-making process should involve gathering all pertinent facts, assessing risks and benefits, seeking clarification when needed, and documenting the rationale for the final decision. This structured approach ensures that decisions are defensible, ethical, and in line with institutional and regulatory expectations. Question 11. The evaluation methodology shows that the American University Costa Rica entrance exam is designed to assess a candidate's foundational knowledge and critical thinking skills relevant to its academic programs. A prospective student is preparing for this exam and encounters various study resources. Which approach best aligns with the principles of fair and effective preparation for this standardized university entrance examination? Option A. Diligently studying only the official syllabus, textbooks, and practice materials provided or recommended by the American University Costa Rica. Option B. Prioritizing study based on popular online forums that claim to share leaked exam questions and common themes from recent test administrations. Option C. Memorizing answers to a large volume of practice questions found on various unofficial educational websites. Assuming this will cover the exam scope, Option D. Focusing preparation on a comprehensive study guide, purchased from a third-party vendor that promises to cover all possible topics, regardless of official syllabus confirmation. The correct answer is A. Diligently studying only the official syllabus, textbooks, and practice materials provided or recommended by the American University Costa Rica. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in academic integrity and the fair assessment of candidates for the American University Costa Rica entrance exam. The core issue is ensuring that the evaluation methodology, designed to identify qualified students, is not compromised by external influences or misinterpretations of its purpose. The pressure to achieve a high score, coupled with the availability of information that may or may not be officially sanctioned, creates a complex ethical landscape for prospective students. Maintaining a level playing field and upholding the university's standards are paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and adherence to the official study materials and guidelines provided by the American University Costa Rica for its entrance exam. This approach is correct because it aligns directly with the stated purpose of the exam: to assess a candidate's preparedness based on the curriculum and knowledge base the university expects. Relying solely on these official resources ensures that candidates are evaluated on the same, approved content, thereby upholding fairness and academic integrity. This is ethically sound as it promotes honesty and equal opportunity. From a regulatory perspective, it adheres to the implicit guidelines of any standardized entrance examination, which mandates that candidates prepare using the prescribed materials to ensure a valid and reliable assessment. Incorrect approach is analysis. Relying on unofficial online forums or study groups that claim to have insider information or predictive questions is an incorrect approach. This fails to adhere to the university's official curriculum and may expose candidates to misinformation or content not covered by the exam, leading to wasted preparation and potentially lower scores. Ethically, it borders on seeking an unfair advantage. Using study guides or materials from previous years' exams without confirmation of their relevance to the current year's syllabus is also an incorrect approach. While past exams can offer insight into question formats, relying on them exclusively without official updates risks preparing for outdated content. This can lead to a misallocation of study time and a failure to cover current material, undermining the validity of the assessment. Focusing solely on memorizing answers to practice questions found on unofficial websites, rather than understanding the underlying concepts, is another incorrect approach. This method does not demonstrate true comprehension of the subject matter, which is the goal of an entrance exam. It creates a superficial understanding that is unlikely to translate into success on questions that require application of knowledge, and it fails to meet the spirit of academic evaluation. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing similar situations should always prioritize official sources of information and guidelines. The decision-making process involves 1. Identifying the authoritative source for exam preparation, in this case, the American University Costa Rica's official materials. 2. Evaluating the reliability and relevance of all other information sources against the authoritative source. 3. Prioritizing preparation strategies that focus on understanding core concepts and skills as outlined by the official syllabus. 4. Maintaining academic integrity by avoiding any methods that could be construed as seeking an unfair advantage. Question 12. Governance review demonstrates that the admissions committee at American University Costa Rica is evaluating a prospective student whose academic record, while strong, presents an unusual combination of achievements and gaps that do not perfectly align with the standard criteria outlined in the university's published admissions policy. The committee is aware of the candidate's compelling personal circumstances that may explain these discrepancies. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to ensure adherence to AUC's regulatory framework and ethical standards? Option A. Reject the student outright due to the deviations from the standard admissions criteria to maintain the integrity of the established policy. Option B. Immediately admit the student based on the compelling personal circumstances, as this demonstrates a commitment to inclusivity. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the candidate's entire application. Consult the official AUC admissions policy manual for guidance on exceptional cases, and convene a meeting with the admissions committee to discuss and document a decision based on the policy's provisions. Option D. Seek informal advice from a senior faculty member outside the admissions committee to gauge their opinion before proceeding with any formal review. The correct answer is B. Immediately admit the student based on the compelling personal circumstances, as this demonstrates a commitment to inclusivity. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions, balancing the need for robust governance with the practicalities of student admissions and the university's mission. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the American University Costa Rica's AUC established admission policies and ethical guidelines when faced with a potentially exceptional candidate whose circumstances might not perfectly align with standard procedures. This requires careful judgment to ensure fairness, integrity, and adherence to the university's stated values. The correct approach involves a thorough, transparent, and policy-driven review process. This entails gathering all relevant information about the candidate, consulting the AUC's official admissions policy manual, and engaging with the admissions committee or relevant governing body for a decision. This approach is correct because it prioritizes adherence to established regulations and guidelines, ensuring consistency and fairness in the admissions process. It upholds the principle of equal opportunity by applying the same standards to all applicants, while also allowing for documented exceptions based on clear criteria, if the policy permits. This aligns with the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of the university's academic standards and admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to bypass established procedures due to personal influence or perceived urgency. This could involve making an immediate admission decision without proper documentation or committee review, or selectively applying policies based on subjective criteria. Such actions would represent a failure to adhere to the AUC's governance framework, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism or bias. This undermines the credibility of the admissions process and could set a precedent for future deviations from policy, eroding institutional trust. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the candidate outright without a comprehensive review, simply because their profile doesn't fit a narrow interpretation of the policy. This fails to consider the spirit of the policy, which may allow for flexibility in exceptional circumstances. It also risks overlooking potentially valuable candidates who could contribute to the university community. This approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to uphold the university's commitment to diversity and inclusion, if such values are part of its mission. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Understand the governing policies. Thoroughly review the AUC's admissions policies and any related ethical guidelines. 2. Gather all relevant facts. Collect all necessary documentation and information pertaining to the candidate's application and circumstances. 3. Consult relevant authorities. Engage with the admissions committee, department heads, or other designated bodies as per AUC policy. 4. Document the process. Maintain clear records of all communications, decisions, and justifications. 5. Apply policies consistently. Ensure that decisions are made based on established criteria and are applied equitably to all applicants. 6. Consider exceptions carefully. If the policy allows for exceptions, ensure they are well documented, justified, and approved by the appropriate authorities. Question 13. The performance metrics show a consistent trend of lower average academic performance among students admitted in the last 2 admission cycles compared to previous years, despite an increase in the overall number of applications received. What is the most appropriate initial response for the American University Costa Rica Admissions Committee? Option A. Conclude that the trend is a temporary fluctuation due to external factors and maintain the current admission standards without further investigation. Option B. Immediately relax the minimum academic requirements for admission to ensure enrollment targets are met and to broaden the applicant pool's academic diversity. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive review of the admissions criteria, evaluation processes, and the correlation between these metrics and student success outcomes to identify potential systemic issues or biases. Option D. Focus solely on enhancing marketing campaigns to attract a larger volume of applicants, assuming that a greater number of applications will naturally lead to a higher caliber of admitted students. The correct answer is C. Initiate a comprehensive review of the admissions criteria, evaluation processes, and the correlation between these metrics and student success outcomes to identify potential systemic issues or biases. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between achieving institutional goals and upholding ethical standards in student admissions. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can inadvertently lead to overlooking critical admissions criteria, potentially compromising the academic integrity and reputation of American University Costa Rica. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional needs with the university's commitment to admitting qualified students. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the admissions process and performance metrics to identify any systemic issues or biases that might be contributing to the observed trends. This approach prioritizes data-driven analysis and adherence to established admissions policies and ethical guidelines. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy that are fundamental to academic institutions. By investigating the root causes of the performance metrics, the university can implement targeted improvements to ensure that admissions decisions are based on objective criteria and that all applicants are evaluated equitably, thereby upholding the university's commitment to academic excellence and integrity. This proactive and analytical stance is crucial for maintaining the credibility of the admissions process and the institution as a whole. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a more lenient admissions policy without a proper investigation. This would be a failure to adhere to the university's established academic standards and could lead to the admission of underqualified students, thereby diminishing the academic rigor and reputation of American University Costa Rica. Such an action would also be ethically questionable, as it prioritizes enrollment numbers over the quality of the student body, and could be perceived as unfair to applicants who met the original criteria. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the performance metrics as insignificant or a temporary anomaly without further investigation. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to acknowledge potential systemic problems within the admissions process. It neglects the responsibility to continuously evaluate and improve institutional practices and could allow underlying issues to persist, potentially leading to long-term negative consequences for the university. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on increasing marketing efforts to attract more applicants without addressing the underlying admissions criteria or process. While attracting a larger applicant pool is beneficial, it does not solve the problem if the admissions process itself is flawed, or if the performance metrics indicate a decline in the quality of admitted students relative to the university's standards. This approach fails to address the core issue and could lead to a larger number of unqualified students being admitted, exacerbating the problem. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic and ethical approach. First, acknowledge and analyze the data presented by the performance metrics. Second, form a committee or task force to investigate the potential causes, ensuring diverse perspectives are included. Third, review existing admissions policies and procedures for clarity, fairness, and effectiveness. Fourth, gather feedback from admissions staff and relevant stakeholders. Fifth, develop and implement evidence-based solutions that align with the university's mission and ethical obligations. Finally, establish a system for ongoing monitoring and evaluation to ensure the effectiveness of implemented changes. Question 14. Risk assessment procedures indicate a student has approached a faculty member requesting assistance in rephrasing a significant portion of their submitted assignment to better align with the professor's perceived expectations, stating they are struggling to articulate their ideas effectively. The faculty member is aware that the student has already submitted the assignment. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the American University Costa Rica's Academic Integrity Framework? Option A. Inform the student that their request is a violation of academic integrity and immediately refer them to the university's disciplinary committee without further discussion. Option B. Politely decline the request. Explain that the assignment has already been submitted and that academic integrity requires all submitted work to be the student's own original effort, and offer to discuss strategies for improving their writing and articulation skills for future assignments. Option C. Agree to rephrase the assignment for the student, emphasizing that this is a one-time exception due to the student's perceived difficulty. Option D. Suggest the student withdraw the submitted assignment and resubmit it with the rephrased content, without explicitly mentioning academic integrity concerns. The correct answer is B. Politely decline the request, explain that the assignment has already been submitted, and that academic integrity requires all submitted work to be the student's own original effort, and offer to discuss strategies for improving their writing and articulation skills for future assignments. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic need and the university's established policies regarding academic integrity and the responsible use of university resources. The student's request, while seemingly minor, touches upon the ethical boundaries of academic assistance and the potential for misrepresentation. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's standards, while also addressing the student's situation appropriately. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication with the student, clearly explaining the university's policy on academic integrity and the prohibition of submitting work that is not entirely their own. This approach prioritizes adherence to the American University Costa Rica's academic regulations, which are designed to ensure a fair and honest learning environment. By refusing to directly fulfill the request and instead offering guidance on proper academic conduct, the university upholds its commitment to ethical scholarship and prevents potential violations. This aligns with the principles of academic honesty expected of all students and faculty. An incorrect approach would be to accede to the student's request by directly providing the requested assistance. This would violate the university's academic integrity policies by facilitating academic dishonesty. It would also set a dangerous precedent, potentially encouraging other students to seek similar unauthorized assistance, thereby undermining the credibility of the academic program. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request without providing any explanation or guidance. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and fails to educate the student on proper academic conduct. It leaves the student uninformed and potentially leads them to believe that such requests are acceptable, which could result in future academic misconduct. A further incorrect approach would be to overreact and immediately escalate the situation to disciplinary action, without first attempting to understand the student's intent or providing an opportunity for clarification and education. While academic integrity is paramount, a balanced approach that emphasizes education and policy adherence is often more effective in fostering a culture of honesty. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding the request and its implications in relation to university policy. 2. Consulting relevant university regulations on academic integrity. 3. Communicating clearly and ethically with the student, explaining policies and offering appropriate guidance. And 4. Documenting the interaction and escalating only if necessary and in accordance with established procedures. Question 15. The performance metrics show a significant decline in student retention rates over the past 2 academic years, a trend that could impact the university's accreditation and future enrollment. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the university administration? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive review of student support services, curriculum relevance, and faculty engagement to identify root causes for the decline and develop targeted interventions based on findings. Option B. Implement a temporary, less rigorous academic probation policy to keep more students enrolled for an additional semester. Option C. Reevaluate the reporting methodology for retention statistics to ensure a more favorable presentation of the data. Option D. Focus on enhancing marketing efforts to attract new students, thereby offsetting the impact of lower retention on overall enrollment numbers. The correct answer is A. Initiate a comprehensive review of student support services, curriculum relevance, and faculty engagement to identify root causes for the decline, and develop targeted interventions based on findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance institutional goals with ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. The university, like any educational institution, aims for success, which can be measured by various performance metrics. However, the pressure to achieve these metrics must not lead to the compromise of academic integrity or the misrepresentation of data, which would violate ethical standards and potentially specific regulations governing educational institutions in Costa Rica. Careful judgment is required to ensure that performance improvement strategies are legitimate and transparent. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective investigation into the performance metrics, seeking to understand the underlying causes of any discrepancies or underperformance. This approach prioritizes data integrity and a commitment to genuine improvement, It aligns with ethical principles of honesty and accountability, and implicitly with any Costa Rican regulations that mandate accurate reporting and responsible governance of educational institutions. By focusing on root causes and implementing evidence-based solutions, the university upholds its commitment to quality education and maintains stakeholder trust. An approach that focuses solely on immediate, superficial improvements without understanding the root causes risks masking deeper issues and could lead to unsustainable or even deceptive practices. This would be ethically unsound, as it prioritizes appearance over substance. Furthermore, if Costa Rican regulations require transparent reporting of institutional performance or prohibit misleading representations, such an approach would likely violate these mandates. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the concerning metrics altogether, hoping they resolve themselves. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and accountability, which is ethically problematic. It also fails to address potential systemic issues that could be detrimental to the institution's long-term health and reputation, and could contravene any regulatory expectations for proactive institutional management. Finally, an approach that involves manipulating data or selectively presenting information to create a more favorable picture is a direct violation of ethical principles and would almost certainly contravene Costa Rican laws or regulations concerning academic reporting and institutional integrity. This is not only unethical, but also carries significant legal and reputational risks. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Acknowledging the performance data and its implications. 2. Initiating a transparent and objective review process to understand the data. 3. Consulting relevant internal policies and any applicable Costa Rican educational regulations. 4. Developing and implementing strategies based on factual findings and ethical considerations. 5. Regularly monitoring progress and reporting outcomes accurately. Question 16. The performance metrics show a slight decline in the average GPA of admitted students over the past 2 admission cycles, alongside an increase in applications from candidates with strong extracurricular leadership roles but lower standardized test scores. The admissions committee is tasked with recommending adjustments to the admissions strategy for the upcoming cycle. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the American University Costa Rica's commitment to academic excellence and equitable admissions? Option A. Suggest a targeted recruitment strategy to attract a higher number of applicants with exceptional standardized test scores, even if it means de-emphasizing other aspects of the application. Option B. Recommend a revised admissions rubric that places greater emphasis on demonstrated leadership potential and community involvement, while maintaining a minimum threshold for academic performance, ensuring a holistic review of each applicant's profile. Option C. Advocate for a more flexible interpretation of the admissions criteria, allowing individual committee members to weigh subjective factors like personal interviews more heavily in their final decisions. Option D. Propose a significant increase in the minimum GPA requirement for all applicants to immediately address the perceived decline in academic performance, without altering other evaluation criteria. The correct answer is B. Recommend a revised admissions rubric that places greater emphasis on demonstrated leadership potential and community involvement, while maintaining a minimum threshold for academic performance, ensuring a holistic review of each applicant's profile. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admissions processes. The admissions committee must make decisions based on objective criteria and established guidelines, avoiding any undue influence or bias. The deep analysis of approaches focuses on adherence to the American University Costa Rica's stated admissions policies and ethical conduct expected of its faculty and staff. The correct approach involves a thorough review of all application materials against the established admissions rubric, prioritizing objective academic achievements and documented extracurricular involvement. This aligns with the university's commitment to merit-based admissions and ensures that all candidates are evaluated consistently. Regulatory and ethical justification stems from the university's own admissions handbook, which mandates a standardized evaluation process to prevent discrimination and uphold academic integrity. An approach that prioritizes candidates based on personal connections or perceived future potential without concrete evidence from their application materials is ethically flawed. This introduces bias and undermines the fairness of the admissions process, potentially violating the university's non-discrimination policies and its commitment to equal opportunity. Another incorrect approach would be to solely focus on improving the university's ranking by admitting students who are likely to achieve high scores in specific metrics, even if their overall profile does not fully align with the university's holistic admissions philosophy. This prioritizes institutional prestige over individual candidate suitability and can lead to a misallocation of resources and a less diverse student body, contradicting the spirit of a comprehensive university education. Finally, an approach that relies heavily on anecdotal evidence or subjective impressions from interviews, without grounding these in the documented performance metrics and stated criteria, is also problematic. This can lead to inconsistent evaluations and may inadvertently favor certain types of candidates over others, failing to uphold the principle of objective assessment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations requires a commitment to transparency, fairness, and adherence to established policies. Admissions professionals must critically evaluate performance metrics within the context of the university's mission and ethical guidelines, ensuring that all decisions are defensible and equitable. This involves a systematic review of evidence, a clear understanding of the admissions criteria, and a willingness to challenge any proposals that deviate from these principles. Question 17. The audit findings indicate a pattern where several applicants with direct familial ties to current American University Costa Rica faculty and administrative staff have been admitted to programs, raising questions about the impartiality of the admissions committee's decisions. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action to address this finding in accordance with best practices for academic integrity and ethical governance? Option A. Establish a separate, ad hoc committee composed solely of external reviewers to evaluate all future applications from individuals with familial ties to university personnel. Option B. Advise committee members to voluntarily disclose familial relationships, but allow them to remain involved in the decision-making process to ensure all perspectives are considered. Option C. Conduct a retrospective review of all admitted applicants with familial ties to faculty or staff, and if no evidence of undue influence is found, consider the matter closed. Option D. Immediately implement a mandatory recusal policy for any admissions committee member who has a familial relationship with an applicant, ensuring that such members do not participate in the discussion or voting for that specific applicant. Correct answer is D. Immediately implement a mandatory recusal policy for any admissions committee member who has a familial relationship with an applicant, ensuring that such members do not participate in the discussion or voting for that specific applicant. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential conflict of interest within the university's admissions committee, specifically concerning the admission of applicants who are relatives of current faculty or staff. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to merit-based admissions with the personal relationships of its employees. Careful judgment is needed to ensure fairness, transparency, and adherence to the American University Costa Rica's internal policies and ethical guidelines, which are paramount in maintaining the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the university's established conflict of interest policy and the specific guidelines for admissions. This approach necessitates recusal of any committee member with a familial relationship to an applicant from the decision-making process for that applicant. This ensures impartiality and prevents undue influence, upholding the principle of fair evaluation for all candidates. This aligns with ethical standards of transparency and objectivity, crucial for any academic institution's reputation and the trust placed in its admissions decisions. An incorrect approach would be to allow the committee member to participate in the discussion and vote, even if they declare their relationship. This fails to adequately mitigate the conflict and creates an appearance of impropriety, potentially undermining the credibility of the admissions outcome. It violates the spirit, if not the letter, of conflict of interest policies designed to prevent bias. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the finding altogether, assuming no actual bias occurred. This is a failure to proactively address a potential ethical lapse and demonstrates a disregard for established procedures and the importance of maintaining a robust system of checks and balances. It leaves the university vulnerable to accusations of favoritism and erodes confidence in its admissions practices. A further incorrect approach would be to simply exclude the relative applicant without a formal review process or consideration of their qualifications. This could be seen as discriminatory and may not align with the university's commitment to evaluating all applicants on their merits, even in the presence of a declared relationship. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the potential conflict of interest. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and ethical codes. 3. Implementing predefined procedures for managing conflicts, such as recusal. 4. Documenting the process and the decision. 5. Ensuring transparency and fairness throughout. Question 18. Upon reviewing an applicant's email expressing anxiety about the upcoming American University Costa Rica entrance exam and subtly inquiring about the possibility of receiving tips or guidance that might help them prepare more effectively, what is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for an admissions officer? Option A. Provide the applicant with a list of topics that will be covered on the exam, along with sample questions that are representative of the difficulty level. Option B. Politely but firmly inform the applicant that the university maintains strict confidentiality regarding exam content and that all applicants are expected to prepare using publicly available resources, while reiterating the importance of academic integrity. Option C. Forward the applicant's email to the university's disciplinary committee for immediate investigation into potential academic misconduct. Option D. Advise the applicant to focus on general study skills and time management techniques without mentioning the exam content or the university's specific policies on academic integrity. The correct answer is B. Politely but firmly inform the applicant that the university maintains strict confidentiality regarding exam content and that all applicants are expected to prepare using publicly available resources, while reiterating the importance of academic integrity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, especially for a competitive program at American University Costa Rica, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while acknowledging the student's aspirations. The correct approach involves a direct and honest conversation with the student, clearly explaining the university's policies on academic integrity and the consequences of any form of academic misconduct. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and transparency, which are fundamental to the academic environment. Specifically, it upholds the American University Costa Rica's commitment to a rigorous and fair admissions process, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their own merits. By educating the student about the rules and the importance of ethical conduct, the university reinforces its values and provides the student with an opportunity to make an informed and ethical decision. An incorrect approach that involves providing the student with advance information about the exam questions or answers would be a severe breach of academic integrity and university policy. This action would undermine the fairness of the admissions process, giving an unfair advantage to one candidate over others, and compromising the credibility of the university. It directly violates the principles of equal opportunity and merit-based evaluation. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the student's request and proceeding without addressing it, fails to uphold the university's responsibility to guide and educate its prospective students on ethical conduct. This inaction could be interpreted as tacit approval or a lack of commitment to academic integrity, potentially leading the student to believe such actions are permissible or overlooked. It misses a crucial opportunity to reinforce ethical standards. Finally, an approach that involves reporting the student to authorities without first attempting to counsel them on ethical conduct might be overly punitive and fail to address the root cause of the student's inquiry. While reporting misconduct is sometimes necessary, a professional approach often involves an initial attempt at education and guidance, especially in a pre-admission context, to foster a culture of integrity from the outset. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical dilemma. 2. Consulting relevant university policies on academic integrity and admissions. 3. Prioritizing open communication and education with the student regarding ethical expectations and consequences. 4. Documenting the interaction and any decisions made. 5. escalating the matter if the student persists in seeking unethical advantages or if university policy dictates. Question 19. System analysis indicates that an applicant for the American University Costa Rica entrance exam expresses anxiety about their preparation and subtly inquires about ways to ensure a strong performance beyond standard study methods. As an admissions officer, how should you ethically and procedurally respond? Strictly adhering to the American University Costa Rica's entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines. Option A. Clearly reiterate the university's strict policy against any form of academic dishonesty, including the sharing of exam content or unauthorized assistance, and advise the applicant to focus on diligent preparation using official study materials. Option B. Offer general advice on test-taking strategies that might indirectly help the applicant, without revealing any specific exam details. Option C. Suggests that the applicant consider alternative programs if they are not confident in their ability to pass the exam through legitimate means. Option D. Inform the applicant that, while direct assistance is not possible, you can provide them with a list of common topics that have appeared on past exams. Correct answer is A. Clearly reiterate the university's strict policy against any form of academic dishonesty, including the sharing of exam content or unauthorized assistance, and advise the applicant to focus on diligent preparation using official study materials. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, especially for an international institution like American University Costa Rica, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while acknowledging the student's aspirations. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication with the student regarding the university's policies on academic honesty and the consequences of any form of academic misconduct. This approach prioritizes adherence to the American University Costa Rica's established entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines. Specifically, it aligns with the university's commitment to ensuring a fair and equitable admissions process, where all applicants are assessed on their own merits. By clearly stating the rules and the potential repercussions, the admissions officer upholds the integrity of the examination process and educates the student on acceptable conduct, thereby preventing potential future violations. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's implied request for assistance or to offer vague advice that could be misinterpreted as condoning unethical behavior. This fails to uphold the university's regulatory framework, which mandates a clear stance against academic dishonesty. Another incorrect approach would be to provide the student with specific exam content or hints, which directly violates the principles of fair assessment and the integrity of the entrance examination. This action would not only be unethical, but also a breach of the American University Costa Rica's admission policies, potentially leading to the invalidation of the student's application and disciplinary action. Furthermore, an approach that involves reporting the student without first attempting a clear educational conversation could be seen as overly punitive and less aligned with a supportive, albeit firm, institutional stance on academic integrity. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding and internalizing the institution's specific regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. When faced with a situation that hints at potential misconduct, the first step should be to clarify the university's policies with the individual involved. This involves direct, unambiguous communication about what constitutes acceptable and unacceptable behavior. If a potential violation is identified, the professional should then assess the severity and context, following established procedures for addressing such issues, which may include educational interventions or formal reporting. The overarching principle is to protect the integrity of the institution and its processes while providing clear guidance to applicants. Question 20. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of slight, intermittent deviations from the expected applicant behavior during the American University Costa Rica entrance exam, specifically related to screen activity outside the designated examination window. Option A. Initiate a formal inquiry into the applicant's conduct, requesting a written explanation for the observed deviations and reviewing the exam's specific regulations on acceptable screen activity. Option B. Forward the raw data from the monitoring system to the admissions committee without any analysis or contextualization. Option C. Immediately disqualify the applicant based on the monitoring system's alert, assuming a deliberate attempt to cheat. Option D. Ignore the deviations, assuming they are minor technical glitches or unintentional user errors that do not impact the exam's integrity. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal inquiry into the applicant's conduct, requesting a written explanation for the observed deviations, and reviewing the exam's specific regulations on acceptable screen activity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and the potential for overlooking minor, unintentional deviations from established protocols. The university entrance exam for American University Costa Rica operates under a specific set of regulations and guidelines designed to ensure fairness and prevent academic misconduct. A robust monitoring system is crucial for upholding these standards, but its interpretation requires careful judgment to distinguish between deliberate breaches and accidental oversights. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review process that prioritizes evidence of intent and impact. This approach aligns with the principles of due process and fairness, ensuring that any disciplinary action is proportionate to the offense. Specifically, it requires gathering all relevant data from the monitoring system, cross-referencing it with the exam's stated rules and regulations, and then assessing whether the observed behavior constitutes a violation. If a potential violation is identified, the next step is to initiate a formal inquiry, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond and present their perspective. This adheres to the university's commitment to a transparent and equitable admissions process, as outlined in its examination guidelines, which emphasize a thorough investigation before any conclusions are drawn. An incorrect approach would be to immediately flag any deviation from the monitoring system's parameters as a definitive violation without further investigation. This fails to consider the possibility of technical glitches, user error, or minor, inconsequential deviations that do not compromise the integrity of the exam. Such an approach could lead to unfair disqualification of deserving candidates and undermine the credibility of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss all anomalies without proper documentation or review, which would weaken the monitoring system's effectiveness and create loopholes for potential misconduct. Finally, an approach that relies solely on the automated alerts of the monitoring system, without human oversight and contextual analysis, risks misinterpreting data and making arbitrary decisions, violating the principles of sound judgment and fairness expected in academic admissions. Professionals tasked with overseeing university entrance exams should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulatory framework governing the exam. This involves familiarizing oneself with the rules, guidelines, and ethical considerations. When presented with data from a monitoring system, the professional should adopt a critical and analytical mindset, seeking to understand the context and potential implications of any observed patterns. The process should involve evidence gathering, objective assessment against established criteria, and a commitment to fairness and due process. If ambiguities arise, seeking clarification from relevant authorities or consulting established protocols is essential. The ultimate goal is to uphold the integrity of the examination process while ensuring equitable treatment for all applicants.